How deep does Auburn go in the tournament? What do Jackson Arnold's stats look like this year? And who's the best recruiter on the staff? It's time for another Barn Takeover.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. It's my favorite part of the week for now. Tomorrow may be my new favorite part of the week, and we release that tomorrow, so definitely make sure you stay tuned for that. It's time for a Barn Takeover, where we let members of the barnauburn.com submit questions on Wednesday, and then we pick some of the best ones out, and we dive in, mix it up, and have some fun. Everything from football to basketball and everything in between. And we're going to jump into all the fun here in just a minute. But before we do that, we got to give a shout out to Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. Use coupon code TheBarn25 to take 25% off your order. Auburn family salsa with a southern kick. You can't beat it. Great texture, great flavor. I know you're going to love it if you just give it a try. You can go to any Publix in the state of Alabama. If you don't live near a Publix, hit that website. Hit that website and save. Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. It's good, y'all. All right, let's jump into the questions right off the bat. Cambo. Remember that name? I'm just going to say put that name in your pocket and remember it. After seeing the bracket, what round does Auburn make it to? Also, give your favorite dark horses. After looking at all the different possibilities, it really feels like I really like Auburn's pathway to the Elite Eight. And then after that, to me, it's a crapshoot. I mean, there's some teams in that bottom half of the South region that could be good. I mean, you got Iowa State, you got Michigan State, you got some teams that could be, issues when you get to the Elite Eight. But man, I just really love the second round matchup between either Louisville or Creighton. And we may talk about this again in just a second, but I really think UC San Diego has a chance to take down Michigan. And Yale's not that far away from taking down Texas A&M when you look at it from a betting perspective. But if you were to get Michigan or Texas A&M, I like both of those in the Sweet 16. I just don't see Auburn losing to Texas A&M again. When something's actually on the line, I really think Elite Eight feels like Elite Eight or bust, I guess, right now. Seems like that should be not too much to ask for this team. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Dark horses, I'm going to be honest, man. I know you're probably going to think I'm crazy, but I like Georgia. They're playing pretty good basketball. They got a couple of superstars. They haven't been just a great team all year, but they've beat some good teams. They took down Florida. I mean, they've played some really good basketball, and you get the worst one seed, and I put worst in quotation marks, Houston in the second round. You got Gonzaga to start off with, who is not the Gonzaga that you think about when you think about Gonzaga. You just don't typically think about them as an 8 seed. Now, I'm not saying dark horse for a champion, but dark horse to make a little run to the Sweet 16 or something like that. I don't know. I think they could make some noise. Kentucky could make some noise in that bottom half of that bracket. As far as dark horse for a champion, that's so tough. That's so tough. So that would typically mean like what 3 or 4 seed do you think could make the deepest run? Texas Tech in their bracket to me looks like they could make, the way their bracket's set up, they could probably make a pretty deep run. But I think Georgia could be a surprise team to make a Sweet 16 as far as a dark horse goes. Good question. Crossfire X, how likely is it that we could see Sam Turner be featured in the 2 deep going into fall camp? that guy's a freak and he has the work ethic to match it, I think he makes it. I think it's very likely based off the early reports. Based off the early reports, he may not even be in the 2 deep. He may be in the if you're talking about top 5 guys. If you look at your starters and you're looking at, I don't know, 4 or 5 guys, I think he could work his way into that spot. I mean, he's physically ready. He came in physically ready. He's got the maturity, like you just mentioned, and he's turning heads. He's turning heads early. There's some guys that better keep their head on a swivel, and they better buckle up and come ready to work because Sam Turner's coming. I like Sam Turner a lot. I think he could definitely crack that. He could be your 5th or 6th guy off the bench easy by the season starts, and maybe work his way even higher. D. Moultrie, one of our regulars. Would a 5 wide of Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton Jr., Malcolm Simmons, Sam Turner, Perry Thompson / Jeremiah Cobb be the best 5 wide in the country? That is like peak Boog, and I love it. Look, I'm sure Ohio State's going to have something to say about that as far as best 5 wide receivers. A best 5 wide in the country. They could probably roll out something pretty impressive. But hey, it's competitive. That top 3, Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton Jr., Malcolm Simmons, I wouldn't trade them for any 3 in the country. I'll tell you that right now. There's no 3 wide receivers. That's including Ohio State. I wouldn't trade those 3 for any of them. I don't know that Zach mentioned it earlier this week. Zach Blackerby mentioned it earlier this week on his show with me. I don't think we're celebrating enough. I don't think we're talking enough about Eric Singleton Jr. and the impact that he can make and the impact we expect him to make. And then somebody just posted on the barnauburn.com Cam Coleman's highlight film from his freshman year. The back half of that year, he really made some explosive plays. I mean, I almost forgot about the touchdown catch he had against Louisiana Monroe. The one-handed Odell Beckham-esque diving and reaching behind his back, like a back shoulder type throw. Boy, he made some physical plays, especially in that Oklahoma game. Catching the ball over the middle, breaking some tackles. He had a really good game in that game, that Oklahoma game. And then Texas A&M was also another good one. He basically took over the first half of that game was the Cam Coleman show. Man, that 1-2 punch. And then Malcolm Simmons, we know what he can do. Can he just grasp the offense and make sure he's on point and running the right routes, making the right decisions? That 1, 2, 3 right there, forget it. I ain't trading them for nobody. Those guys can play. Man, that wide receiver room. I've been walking through the roster. I can't wait to get to that episode. You want to talk about Boog. Buckle your chin strap. Buckle your chin strap because the sunshine's coming. Oh, man, I love that wide receiver room. Current health status for Alex McPherson. Do they expect him to play this season? Or will the battle for the kicking job be between Vashon, Magoo, or Gibbs, which is the new transfer from Southern Miss? Look, I at this point, I think you just got to go ahead and get it in your head that he's probably not going to play football anymore. I know he started kicking a little bit recently, but I think he had another procedure. If he plays, it's a bonus. Let's just say that. But it's just a tough situation, man. Just so unfortunate because he's so freaking gifted, so talented, and just to be struck with something freakish like that at that age, man, just crazy, heartbreaking too. Because man, he was good. He's good. He's still good. He just can't. His body won't cooperate. I would go ahead in my head and be preparing that he's not going to play. And then if he somehow over the summer they figure something out and he can gain his strength back quick enough, look at that as a bonus. But for him, just right now, you're just hoping you can just kind of try to live a normal life. It's just tough. It's tough to even like talk about without getting choked up about it. It's just so heartbreaking. Before we keep going on the questions, definitely check out mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN for a 50% deposit bonus. What are you doing? March Madness starts today. You need to get on that Auburn first half line if you can get it. Take that free play, stack it to your chin, and have some fun. Get that account set up, bet responsibly, and then you'll love the platform. Easy deposits, easy withdrawals, mybookie.ag. And then definitely check out roback.com. Use coupon code BUTTON20 for 20% off. Hoodies, polos, shorts. Get ready for spring. They just dropped their Azalea collection, which is basically getting ready for the Masters. All their Masters-themed items. Man, they got some dope-looking stuff. They got a hoodie that's fire, a couple of quarter zips that are fire, polos, reintroducing some polos they dropped last year, hats. That Azalea collection is the bomb. You need to check it out, roback.com. Do you expect Jackson Arnold's stats to be better, worse, or about the same this season? What was Peyton Thorne's stats this past year? 2,713 yards passing, 62% completion percentage, 21 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Pretty solid. I mean, from no context, if you just look at the box score, not bad. Not bad stats. That's with sitting out a game and a half. I would say I would expect the stats to be, I want to say better on a per game basis, probably about the same. And I know what you're going to say, oh dear, sound the alarm. With better context, those stats can win a ton of football games. When a lot of your yards are not coming with down 2 touchdowns and you're throwing, you get 70 to 80 yards at the end of a game, that doesn't matter because you don't have enough time to come back. If you're not getting a big portion of your yards in those scenarios, those stats can make some noise. Bo Wallace, a former Hugh Freeze quarterback, and we know the controversy around Bo. And I know that he's got some issues, behind the scenes probably with Hugh, and that's fine. But even with that, his quote was, "You can throw for 3,000 yards in this offense on run calls." So I would expect something around that. And with better which would be where Peyton Thorne probably was if he didn't miss that game and a half. He'd have been right around those numbers. The system makes it happen. It's just the context around when those yards are had and when those touchdowns are thrown. I would take right now 2,700 plus yards and 20 plus touchdowns. I feel like with this team and this roster, I would feel like you probably have a pretty good football team if that's the case. Over 2,700 yards and over 20 touchdowns, I'll take that right now. And that's what I expect. The offense just sort of ends up yielding that. You just hope the context is a little bit better. And you're not throwing to catch up. You're throwing to kind of put the pedal to the metal and close out games. And those touchdowns are coming in better situations instead of just, down 2 scores and at the end of a game. Spectre, this is a good question. Who is the presumptive successor to Dylan Cardwell at center? Is it someone on the roster now, someone from the 2025 class, or will we grab someone from the portal? People are going to forget, like, I don't think we put enough value on Dylan Cardwell's role. There's a lot of teams that would kill to have a guy like Dylan that would be willing to come off the bench and play as hard as he does, understanding that he's not going to be ever the primary offensive focus on the team. Like, your job is to go in there, block shots, get rebounds, and, maybe get some putbacks here or there, catch an alley-oop. We're not running the offense through you. Any points you score is a bonus. There's not many people out there in college basketball today willing to accept that role. So replacing him is going to be tough. And to answer your question directly, I think that person's on the roster, and that's going to be a Darren Scott. I think he's redshirting this year so he can have one more year, and it's specifically for that role. He's a bouncy 6'9", 6'10" guy. Again, I don't expect him to be a huge offensive weapon, but I expect him to play tough defense and go up and bang and get rebounds. I think that's going to be his primary role. And then you go out and try to get you a blockbuster big man out of the portal. I think that's going to be the goal. Now, who that is, we won't know for a while, but I think the portal opens up pretty soon. So should be fun to see how this team fills out, who can come back and who can't. Right now, it seems like the only person we thought maybe you could get a Denver back, maybe you could get a Chaney back. But their NCAA doing the NCAA's things they're dragging their feet. So looks like Chad's the only one that you might have a chance to bring back, and he's sort of throwing out hints like he'll come back. We'll see. What do you think is the most likely upset during the NCAA tournament? I assume we're just talking about first round stuff. That UC San Diego Michigan game, that's a 5-12. That's only a 2.5 point spread. It's crazy. Would that even be that big of an upset? I tell you what, man, basketball is becoming, the parity is just crazy. It's becoming closer and closer. VCU and BYU, that's an 11-6. That game's only like a 2.5 point spread. VCU could easily upset BYU. But the one I'm most interested in, and I haven't seen a spread yet, but I'm looking at Iowa State and Lipscomb. And the reason is, I'm pretty sure where is it? They're on our side. There it is. Yeah, Iowa State and Lipscomb. That's a 3 and a 14. Iowa State's without one of their best players. They're very talented. But, I mean, this is the guy that scored 23 points against us. And Lipscomb had a, pretty solid season. Biggest upsets, I'm looking at something like that. I think Arkansas could also upset Kansas and make a little run. I don't know. That's a tough question. But if I guess biggest upset that I'm looking at, I mean, there's every 12 could beat every 5. They're all very, very tight as far as spreads go. But yeah, I'm looking at Lipscomb in that Iowa State game. I'm curious to see how Iowa State handles without Gilbert being in there. What's the biggest challenge for Auburn during the tournament? Honestly, it's what Auburn needs to do to make a run. Obviously, they got to get back hot shooting. But the challenge to me during the tournament that I'm looking at for Auburn is we don't have – I know we had the putback late win against Iowa. No, was it Iowa State or Houston? Iowa State, the buzzer beater putback. That wasn't even really a good possession. We just got a fortunate bounce. End of game, game-winning, game-tying possessions. Auburn hasn't had a lot of those. And when we do have them, they're not great. I even look at the Georgia game. Last possession. I mean, they had a point with 6 or 7 seconds left on the clock. And we give up a point-blank look, and he just doesn't make it. The putback, like you got to catch it in the air and shoot it. and he had a dead to right shot right there in front of the goal, and he missed it. Alabama game. End of game scenarios, we haven't had a lot of those. Will we be able to call a timeout when we need to draw something up? How do we handle those late game situations? Those to me will be the biggest challenge for Auburn, just because we haven't had many, and when we have had them, they haven't been that great. I'm just being honest. Andrew 88, I know our wide receiver room is stacked. Thoughts on Bryce Cain? Will he end up transferring? Does he stand a chance to play? He's really small. I know that. He's physically got a lot of barriers, but he's got elite speed. It's just, man, there's so many good players in front of him. If you just look at it, I think he loves Auburn, but if you just look at it like you look at football today, it's really hard to find the pathway for him. I mean, I guess if Eric Singleton is a one and done, that frees up a spot next season. It's hard to see where he fits in this year, to be completely honest. So what does that mean? What does that mean as far as his career at Auburn? It'd be tough. I'd hate to lose him because I think he could be a really good player down the road. And that down the road may be 2026, like I just said. I just think he's not quite there, especially not size-wise. And that may be something that he never is able to achieve just because he's just a smaller guy. Got to bulk up a little bit. But, man, he's gifted. He could be a baller in the right situation, I think. Just so many dudes in front of him. How many players, if any, do you expect Auburn to lose to the spring portal? And how many do you think we'll gain? I mean, you're going to lose some. How many is your guess is just as good as mine. I think you'll probably lose. I would imagine you probably lose an offensive lineman, probably lose a defensive back. I mean, we just talked about Bryce Cain. I would hope that would not be the case, but I could easily see you lose, a wide receiver maybe. So what, 4 or 5 maybe you could lose to the portal, and you're going to bring in that many. However many you lose, that's how many you're going to bring in. I don't know if that's a cop-out question or cop-out answer, but that's kind of how I feel there. Last question, Brian Beatty, who's the off-the-field staffer that has the biggest impact on recruiting? Which assistant is most likely to get a 5-star recruit to commit to their position group? Kenyatta Watson and Will Redmond get a lot of the love. So I don't want to – that's an easy answer. There's a couple of guys I think that play a huge role behind the scenes off the field that don't get quite the love for all the work they put in. Aaron Pittard is one of the names that I hear a ton. He's the assistant director of player personnel, heavily involved in a lot of these recruitments, a lot of the scouting. He's a big deal. A.K. McGullough, probably the unsung hero of the most unsung hero of that 2024 class. He was one of the first guys brought in, kind of tasked with wearing multiple hats. He's the director of college and high school recruiting. He's a stud. Kids love him. He's a great recruiter. And then I think it's Logan Adams, who's listed as like a tight end analyst, assistant tight ends coach, but he's in the middle of every recruitment. He's one definitely that makes a big impact off the field. If you want to go to the Auburn football roster page, you can learn a little bit more about these guys and what they do and the whole off the field staff. But those are 3 guys. Those are 3 guys. Jesse Stone's another one. Those are 3 guys that I hear their names a lot as far as recruitment goes. Which coach is most likely to get a 5-star recruit to commit to their position group? I'm going to answer this 2 different ways. Number 1, if I got to have a coach to go get a 5-star, I'm going with VK Dub, Vontrell King Williams, or I'm going with Marcus Davis. Those 2 guys have had the most success with 5-star guys, and I think they're two of the best recruiters on the staff. Now, which position group this year? is most likely to get a 5-star. If I'm cheating a little bit, it may be the same 2 guys. You got Cedarian Morgan as a 5-star that you could possibly get at wide receiver. Got a couple of edge guys, so Rock Bellantoni can pull off one if you can close. There's some interior defensive linemen that are, 5-star worthy that you could possibly get. And then there's some DBs. I'm curious to see TJ Rushing. I think he's making some noise right now with some safeties that are very high caliber. And I think a couple of those could end up being 5-stars. So based off of – so I answered it a couple different ways. If I had to pick a coach to go get a 5-star, it'd be Marcus Davis or Vontrell King-Williams. And then Rock Bellantoni could end up with a 5-star because there's a couple of 5-stars Auburn's after at edge. And then I think TJ Rushing, there's some elite safeties that we're after as well. And you always got Crime back there. He could pick one off if you don't watch out. You better pay attention. Crime will get you. Guys, another great barn takeover. Great questions. Basketball, football, tons of stuff to talk about. We're going to be back again tomorrow. I'm very excited about the show tomorrow. I think y'all are going to like it. Something special that nobody else is doing. And I think we're going to have fun doing it. And we're going to keep it going every single Friday. So definitely want to stay tuned for that. Sign up for mybookie.ag. Use coupon code TheBarn. Again, for a 50% deposit bonus, give them $100. You're going to give 50 back free to play with. If you need a real estate agent, hit me up. Message me on Twitter. Message me on Instagram. Email me krush@thekeyagency.realestate. Moving to Auburn, moving out of Auburn, want to build a house in Auburn, or just want to invest, I can definitely help. Guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe to it. Follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5. We'll be back again tomorrow. Let's win this first round game and get the train rolling for the NCAA tournament. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay button.
Thanks for listening and drive home safely.